for this afternoon is represented by, firstly, Mr. Samuel Chan, and secondly, Mr. Colin Lim, who are from the Ministry of Finance. And finally, we have Ms. Peggy Powell, who is a former debater and brings with her a wealth of debating experience. Now, today, teams are simulating a budget debate set in Singapore's Parliament. The Parliament House itself is right across the road, so that should be easy to visualize over here. Teams are going to debate a particular policy that's proposed to them by the Ministry of Finance. The other teams have also been given specific groups in society to represent as they support or attack the policy. Now, my job here really is to be bell ringer. Each speaker has 5 minutes to speak. At half a minute and 4.5 minutes, I'm going to ring the bell once. That's the zone in which people can be offered points of information or interruptions by the opposing side. At 5 minutes, I'm going to ring the bell twice, which means you should be done. And at 5 minutes and 30 seconds, I'll ring the bell repeatedly and call for the MOF security guards to take you kicking and screaming off the stage. To start us out for today's debate, whether we should temporarily lower GST on essential goods, I call Sonika from Temasek Junior College to open the case for the government.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Before I begin my argument proper, allow me to define the key terms in today's debate. GST is a broad-based consumption tax levied on imported goods, as well as nearly all supplies of goods and services. As of 1st July 2007, GST in Singapore stands at 7%. Essential goods are items such as food staples, rice, vegetables, meat, water, and electricity that cannot be done without. Things that must be had for the preservation, sustainability, and reasonable enjoyment of life. Having said that, I shall now outline the Ministry of Finance policy. We propose a temporary reduction of GST on essential goods. By temporary, we mean that the GST will be lowered until Singapore rides out the current economic recession. The length of implementation will be determined by the MOF's own projections, which predicts the recession will last an approximate 2 years. Also, we will issue detailed guidelines as to which goods fall under the category of essential goods to ensure a clearer facilitation and implementation of our policy. The proposed reduction would be to a level at which middle and lower middle class consumers' real income does not change and their spending patterns remain the same. The yardsticks to calculate the following would be the Retail Scales Index and the Monthly Digest of the Statistics of Singapore. Currently, analysis points towards a reduction of 3.5% on the GST. Our policy will help the masses better, but will also better aid the sandwich class especially, which is a segment of the population in the lower middle class, the segment of the population that is in limbo, the segment of the population that is currently not receiving targeted aid because they do not qualify and still continue to face financial strains. Therefore, we say that our policy will better target the needs of the entire populace of Singapore. Now, on to my clarifications. We would like to clarify that our policy is not meant to replace the status quo entirely, but instead solve what the status quo ignores. For example, the Ministry of Finance is not arguing against CPF top-ups or transport offset or education vouchers. Instead, we are targeting areas where currently the government has been inefficient in providing for the mass welfare of the people, and hence we say that's the baseline of our policy. Now, on to our case divide. As first speaker, I will be elaborating on how our policy is more efficient than the status quo, and secondly, on the point of economic resilience. My deputy will further expound on how our policy is more cost efficient. Now, allow me to walk you through my substantive. If the Ministry of Finance sustains the current GST level in light of the global credit crunch, coupled with the fact that the demand for essential goods is inelastic and the worsening financial scenario, we say that the sandwich populace will have to spend a greater proportion of their monthly income on these necessities, depriving them of other goods. We also say that under the status quo, tax rebates are given out to families as a way to help them cope with the current economic recession. However, we say that our policy more directly targets the needy, curbing any form of conspicuous consumption that may result from these tax rebates. When a lump sum is handed out, ladies and gentlemen, consumers have the choice to spend the money impulsively on superfluities. In fact, people in the CDCs have to be told to not spend the tax rebate monies on plasma TV screens. And this is what we're talking about. Such forms of spending must be curbed by the government to ensure that our citizens stay afloat during the economic fire and brimstone. Hence, we say that a GST cut is a more efficient method of doing so because we ensure that it is channeled towards their consumption of essential goods to ensure they effectively ride out the economic recession. Now, we also say that a cut in GST is specific to all family needs because it doesn't go under a generalized, uniform basis. It doesn't go along the basis of an average family. For we understand that not every family falls under the category of an average income family. Under the status quo, needy families have vouchers. They have grants given out to them. However, such a form of aid is inefficient and short-term, given that the economic downturn is not likely to ease anytime soon. Some may need more food vouchers due to a larger number of family members, while others may need greater healthcare due to the presence of more elderly. Hence, we say that a GST cut would mean that these families are better able to spend on the necessary areas without having to rely on limited vouchers because a less proportion of their income is spent on essential goods. And on to the point of feasibility. We, the MOF, have sufficient finances to allow a cut in the GST due to an unprecedented 2.7 billion surplus in taxes last year. Therefore, we say that a responsible government with a surplus from taxes last year would not continue a 7% tax on its people, especially during a time where finances is a great strain on the populace. Therefore, we say, ladies and gentlemen, a GST cut is essential during these times. Thank you.
Is Joshua from River Valley High School to begin the attack from the opposition side.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We, the opposition, we acknowledge the consideration of the government that you are taking the initiative to help out the poor and needy in this time of crisis by lowering the regressive tax we all know as GST. Now, if we lower regressive tax, it is known that the poor will get benefits. We do not doubt that. However, we believe that is not
on the point, sir.
No, thank you, sir. However, we believe that the opposition has a better policy than what the government has suggested in the form of targeted assistance, which I will be covering in a minute. Moving on to my case proper. If GST of essential goods were to be significantly lowered, the government would be losing a significant amount of tax revenue. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what if we chose not to reduce this this cut in GST? No, thank you, sir. Why we chose not to lower this GST on essential goods and keep this money and use it on other areas that actually require assistance? No, thank you, ma'am. Hence, the opposition believes that the money should be put into two specific areas, namely targeted assistance for the poor in forms of subsidies, which I'll be covering later, and also to develop the infrastructure of Singapore and to rebuild the economy of Singapore, which my second speaker will be mentioning in a while. In addition, I'll be talking about how the benefits brought about by lowering GST for essential goods are simply too little. Moving on to the first area, subsidies for the poor. These subsidies will be in form of targeted assistance, and they are not rebates, offsets, or what we know. No, thank you, sir. What we are providing is cold, hard cash for families that earn monthly incomes of below $1,500 or large families with low salaries which are struggling to make ends meet. These families will be given financial aid through the assistance plan. No, thank you. The money will come from this tax surplus of $2.7 billion, which the proposition believes that the government is not using well. The target assistance plan will be in the form of monthly bonuses of the $400, which the opposition believes that is enough to cover the costs of essential goods and utility bills. Rebates on income tax can also be given to these families if depending on their financial status. With the assistance plan, no, thank you, sir. With the assistance plan, the poor will be able to afford their essential goods as well as other taxes, and the well-off can continue living life as per normal as well-off people. At the same time, the money used in this plan will not be put to waste, and there will be no need to lower the GST for essential goods in any case. No, thank you, sir. Now, moving on to my second point. Ladies and gentlemen, picture this. If we were to lower GST by a few percent, a bag of rice, 5 kilogram a bag of rice, costs $6 at the very least. Take away the GST of, let's say, 4%, and one would save some 24 cents on a bag of rice. We have 4 months of that, and he saves $1 on a bag of rice per month. Wow. But he can't even buy an extra bag of rice with this $1, which shows, ladies and gentlemen, that the savings achieved through this lower of GST of essential goods is simply too insignificant to actually make a difference in the lives of the needy. Furthermore, several hypermarket chains in the nation have already implemented measures to make essential goods cheaper than they already are. NTUC, in particular, have a wide range of cheap house brand products, the everyday low price system, as well as the link point system to make essential goods affordable for all. In addition, a wide basket of rebates and offsets provided by NTUC, a further lowering of the GST of essential goods would not be very necessary. In fact, the government would save even less if the GST for an already cheap brand of essential goods were to be lowered some more. It simply is not necessary. So, ladies and gentlemen, what have I shown you today?
Sir.
No, thank you. I mentioned a few flaws in the actions taken by the proposition and how I've introduced a targeted assistance scheme that will probably be more effective in terms of direct aid to the needy and to the poor and needy. I've also introduced a win-win situation in the form of this policy, one that is fairer, more effective, and certainly more helpful than the temporal lower of GST for essential goods. I've also shown you that the benefits supporting this motion are simply too insignificant to be of much use. So, ladies and gentlemen, the choice is clear. To help the poor, the motion must fall. To make the best of what the finances have, and to provide the best form of aid to the poor and needy, this motion must fall. I end my speech here. Thank you.